We live in a strange kind of time, a time full of contradictions. We have never been so connected with the world, and yet we have never felt so lost inside ourselves. Every day, people go about their routines, working, posting smiling photos, replying to endless messages, meeting deadlines, doing everything that looks normal from the outside. But deep down, something feels off. Something doesn't fit anymore. There's a quiet sense of emptiness that keeps following us, a kind of sadness that doesn't come from anything specific, and a deep tiredness that no amount of sleep can fix. It's like we are surrounded by noise, movement, and screens. But inside, everything feels strangely silent. And this silence, it's not peaceful. It screams. It's the kind of silence that keeps you up at night, even when nothing is wrong. The strangest part is that this emptiness doesn't come from huge tragedies or disasters. It doesn't come from wars or hunger or chaos outside. It comes from the absence of those things, from a life that seems fine on the surface but feels hollow inside. It comes from repeating the same routine every day without stopping to ask why, from living so fast that there's never a pause, from the pressure to always be successful, happy, productive, no matter what's happening within you. And when people feel lost, most of them think it's their own fault. They think something is wrong with them. They see it as a personal failure, as if not knowing what to do with life is a weakness. But what if it's not? What if feeling lost is actually the most honest reaction to the kind of world we live in? A world that keeps moving without direction. A world that never stops to breathe. Feeling lost today might not be a mistake. It might be the clearest sign that you are still awake in a society that has fallen asleep. Because everywhere around us, everything is about performance, algorithms, numbers, and results. We are told to chase progress, but no one tells us what it actually means. We are promised happiness, but the more we chase it, the emptier it feels. The modern person isn't lost because they lack choices. It's the opposite. They are lost because there are too many choices, too much information, too many expectations, too many directions to follow, and too many people telling them how to live. And in the middle of all that noise, they lose something precious, the connection with themselves. They lose touch with the present moment. They forget how to simply exist. It's like being alive but feeling disconnected from life itself. And that's where the ideas of Albert Camus start to make sense again. Camus was a philosopher and writer from the 20th century, born in Algeria, but his thoughts spoke to the entire world. He lived during some of the darkest times in human history: world wars, genocides, and the threat of nuclear destruction. He saw the collapse of everything people once believed in: governments, ideologies, religions, entire systems of meaning falling apart. And in the middle of all that, he asked a question that cuts deeper than any other. Is life still worth living? This wasn't an academic question for him. It wasn't philosophy for the sake of debate. It was a question of survival. If the world gives us no certainty, if all the big ideas that once gave people meaning have failed, then how do we keep going? What keeps a person alive when everything feels meaningless? This video, just like Camus's thoughts, is a pause, a moment to stop, to breathe, and to reflect. Not to search for something out there, but to rediscover what we've lost inside. Because being lost doesn't always mean you're failing. Sometimes it means you've stopped pretending. Sometimes it means you've finally started to see things as they are. And that awareness, painful as it is, might be the first step toward a new kind of clarity. Camus's philosophy gives us a path, not an easy one, but a real one. He reminds us that even when life doesn't make sense, we can still live it with open eyes and an awake heart. He invites us to face the confusion, not run from it. When Camus looked at the world around him, he saw a planet in ruins. 2 world wars had torn apart people's faith in reason, peace, and human goodness. The dream that science and progress would bring happiness had been destroyed by bombs and concentration camps. Everything that once gave people direction, their morals, their values, their sense of order, had collapsed. And out of that destruction, Camus built one of the most powerful ideas in philosophy: the absurd. For Camus, the absurd isn't something that exists outside of us. It is something that happens inside us, in that moment when our need for meaning meets the world as silence. Humans need order. We crave explanations. We want to understand why we exist and why we suffer. But the world doesn't answer. It just stays silent. And from that silence, the absurd is born. It's that strange feeling when life feels both familiar and foreign at the same time. When everything looks normal, but nothing feels right. For a long time, people thought this feeling only came during great tragedies, war, loss, collapse. But today, it shows up in much quieter ways. Our modern world has created a new kind of absurdity, one that hides behind comfort, technology, and the illusion of freedom. Zygmunt Bauman called this liquid modernity, a time where all the structures that used to give people stability have melted away. Things like religion, community, family, and ideology. They once gave people a shared story, a sense of belonging. Now they've been replaced by endless self-construction, a constant search for identity, for meaning, for validation. We are told that we are free to be anything we want, but no one tells us what to do with that freedom. We can choose everything, but we no longer know who we are. We live in a world where every door is open, but no one knows where to go. We have unlimited access to information, but very little wisdom. We are surrounded by opportunities, but constantly paralyzed by doubt. And this overload, this flood of choices, doesn't liberate us. It suffocates us. We start to feel that being alive is just another task to perform. The need to be someone turns into pressure. The need to find meaning becomes exhausting. This modern absurdity isn't loud. It's quiet. It's hidden in the normal days. It's in the moment you wake up and already feel tired. It's in the scrolling, the endless content, the constant search for something that fills the empty space inside. It's the sense that life is happening, but you're not really part of it. And so, absurdity has changed its shape. It no longer looks like despair. It looks like numbness. It is not the scream of someone in pain. It is the silence of someone who doesn't feel anything anymore. You see it in the worker who does their job like a robot, without knowing why. You see it in the student who studies but feels disconnected from the future. You see it in the young person who has everything they thought they needed, but still feels that something is missing. It's in every late-night scroll, every meaningless argument online, every empty distraction that promises relief but leaves you even more lost. Camus said, "The absurd is born when the human heart asks for meaning, and the universe responds with silence." And today, that silence is everywhere. It hides behind smiling pictures, perfect posts, and forced laughter. It hides behind busy schedules and fake productivity. We live surrounded by noise, but what is killing us is not the noise. It is the emptiness between the sounds. So what do we do with that? What do we do when life feels absurd? Camus believed there are only two choices: despair or revolt. But before we get there, it's important to understand the kind of war we're living in now. Because the most dangerous war of our time isn't between countries. It's inside us. It's a war of attention, a war fought with distractions, notifications, and constant urgency. An invisible war where the enemy doesn't have a face. And that is what makes it so powerful. It's a war against your ability to be present. And most people are losing it without even realizing. Camus once said that to live fully, we must feel life directly. Feel the warmth of the sun, the wind on our skin, the sound of our own breath. That's how we reconnect with reality. But today, that kind of experience is disappearing. It's being replaced by images, by screens, by digital illusions that look real but aren't. The feed has become more real than the person standing in front of us. Validation from strangers feels more important than self-knowledge. And the present moment, the only thing that truly exists, has been replaced by the next one. We've become addicted to speed, to progress, to movement, and it's destroying our ability to just be. The digital world gives us the illusion of connection, but it quietly builds walls between us. Conversations become short. Listening becomes rare. Pauses are replaced with more content. And silence, the one thing that allows us to hear ourselves, has become almost unbearable. But silence is where truth lives. It's where real awareness begins. And that's why our system tries to erase it. Because a silent, aware mind is dangerous. It sees things clearly. Camus understood that to live honestly, you must be present in the absurd. You must look life in the face, even when it makes no sense. But how can anyone stay present in a world that rewards distraction and punishes stillness? How do we live deeply in a culture that glorifies speed and calls stillness laziness? Without realizing it, we've become part of the system that keeps us distracted. And the price of that distraction is our inner life. We're losing something deeply human, the ability to simply exist with awareness, to feel the weight of the moment, to breathe and mean it. Without presence, there is no freedom. Without awareness, there is no revolt. Camus didn't stop at describing the problem. He offered something that feels even more important now than ever, a way forward. Not a theory, not a belief system, but a lived response. A choice that begins inside every person. The choice between despair and revolt. Camus never offered comfort. He refused to lie about life. He didn't try to sugarcoat the chaos or escape into promises of salvation. He faced the hardest truth head-on. The world has no fixed meaning. And instead of running from that, he told us to confront it with open eyes and courage. Because for him, realizing that life has no built-in purpose is not the end, it's the beginning. It's the moment you stop waiting for answers and start creating your own. When you understand that no one will save you, that there's no absolute meaning waiting to be found, what do? You have two choices: despair or revolt. Despair means surrender. It's when a person stops caring. When they move through life like a shadow, breathing only because they have to. It's the quiet death that happens while you're still alive. It's not always visible, but it's everywhere. People existing but not living, working but not feeling, moving but not going anywhere. Camus called this the death of the will to live. Not necessarily physical death, but an emotional and spiritual one. It's when you stop wanting to understand or create or love. You keep existing, but you no longer live fully. The other path is revolt. But revolt, in Camus' sense, doesn't mean destruction or rebellion against the world. It's not about breaking things or fighting people. It's a quiet inner stand, a decision to live fully even when life feels meaningless. It's choosing to say yes to existence, not because it makes sense, but precisely because it doesn't. Revolt is continuing to breathe, to create, to feel, to love, even when nothing guarantees a result. It's living despite the absurd, or maybe because of it. That's where Camus' philosophy becomes both tragic and beautiful. He doesn't tell us to escape our pain. He tells us to live with it, consciously. The true rebel, in his view, is someone who stays awake in a sleeping world. Someone who creates, who loves, who thinks deeply. Not because it's easy, but because they choose to. They don't need certainty or reward to justify their life. They live for the simple truth that being alive, even in a meaningless world, is still worth it. Revolt is the art of saying yes to life, even when it hurts. It's about living with intensity, honesty, and depth, without clinging to illusions. It's refusing the comfort of false meaning, but also refusing to fall into empty despair. It's the courage to live without guarantees. And in that choice, something shifts. If the universe is indifferent, then every feeling, every act, every simple joy becomes infinitely valuable. The smile of a friend, the light on your face, the quiet moment when you truly breathe. These small things become sacred, not because they last forever, but because they exist right now. Camus wasn't a pessimist. He was a realist, but a deeply human one. He believed that even in a meaningless world, we can still create meaning through our actions, that we can live truthfully without needing answers, that we can say, "The world doesn't care, but I do." That's the heart of it. Either we fall into despair, or we choose revolt. A quiet, personal revolt that begins the moment we decide to be fully present in our own lives. And presence, as simple as it sounds, is one of the hardest things in today's world. Because being present means slowing down. And slowing down goes against everything the world tells us to do. But maybe that's exactly the point. Maybe slowing down is the real rebellion. Maybe learning to feel again, to notice again, to breathe again, is how we fight back against the absurd. Camus believed that beauty lives in simple things, that rediscovering them is not weakness, it's strength. It's a way of saving your own soul from disappearing in the noise. If something in what you're hearing feels deeply familiar, if it speaks to a quiet part of you that rarely finds words, then you'll probably find real value in my books. Beyond the Shadow dives into the essential thoughts of Jung, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a simple 30-day path to bring those insights into your daily life. You can find both linked in the pinned comment. Now, slow down. It's such a small phrase, yet it sounds almost rebellious today. In a world obsessed with doing everything faster, being productive every second, and constantly chasing optimization, even pausing feels like a crime. Taking a break is viewed as laziness. Living slowly is seen as lacking ambition. Time isn't lived anymore. It's managed, chopped into targets, deadlines, and performance metrics. We measure everything but rarely feel anything. But Camus, with his strange, almost uncomfortable honesty, suggested something radical. Slowing down isn't weakness. It's an act of rebellion. It's a way to reconnect with what's real. His kind of rebellion doesn't happen in protests or loud speeches. It begins quietly, deep inside, when you decide to experience life directly, with your senses, in the present moment. Camus didn't believe that the value of life came from big, dramatic meanings or grand purposes. For him, it was hidden in small, real experiences. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of waves, a walk with no destination, the silent joy of an unplanned moment. These moments, though simple, carry power. They can wake us up from the numbness that modern speed forces upon us. Constant acceleration dehumanizes us. It strips away reflection, silence, and awareness. You wake up already feeling late. You eat while replying to emails. You walk, but your ears are blocked by headphones. Everything feels urgent. Everything must be done yesterday. And somewhere in that rush, you disappear. You stop being a person and turn into a function, a moving part inside a machine that demands constant output but never gives meaning back. To slow down is to take your life back. It's saying no to the system that tries to turn you into something mechanical. It's reclaiming the right to feel, to breathe, to exist at the speed of your own heart. It's letting silence come back. It's giving space for boredom, for wandering thoughts, for the mind to find its rhythm again. But doing this feels almost impossible because we've been trained to think that our value lies only in what we produce, not in what we are. So we push ourselves even when we're exhausted. We keep working even when we're empty inside. We fill every silence with more noise, every gap with another task. We're always going somewhere, even when we have no idea where that is. Because what matters, it seems, is not stopping. Camus invites us to a different logic, the logic of presence. To be truly present is a quiet form of resistance. It's creating a small pause inside the non-stop current of alienation. It's saying, I am not just something to be used. And that choice, as small as it looks, has immense power. It changes how you see time, how you relate to others, and even how you define the meaning of life. Because when you slow down, something unexpected happens. You start noticing. You begin to actually perceive the world. And in perception, real transformation begins. In that slowness, beauty starts to appear again. Camus saw beauty as a form of resistance, not the perfect, polished beauty sold to us, but raw, tangible, everyday beauty. The beauty of being alive despite everything. The beauty of an ordinary afternoon, a quiet talk, a handmade creation, or a moment so complete that it doesn't need to be photographed. It's already full just by existing. So slowing down isn't laziness. It's refusing to live like a machine. It's reclaiming human time inside mechanical time. And that is not passivity, it's rebellion, the most silent and transformative one you can imagine. But choosing to live slowly also means accepting something very difficult: the absence of guarantees. Because once you step out of autopilot, you face reality as it is. Raw, unpredictable, uncertain. Life doesn't promise anything, and that's where Camus gives us his most freeing idea. True freedom begins when we accept the absurd completely. Freedom doesn't come from control. It comes from letting go of the need for control. Most people spend their whole lives trying to run away from the absurd. They cling to clear answers, belief systems, success formulas, and comforting promises. Anything that softens the discomfort of living in a world without fixed meaning. The illusion of control becomes their shelter. It makes them feel safe, even though that safety is imaginary. Camus took the opposite path. He didn't try to escape the confusion. He walked straight into it. He faced the absurd directly and, in doing so, found something few people ever reach: freedom. To accept the absurd means to admit that life has no guaranteed purpose, that the universe doesn't owe you explanations, that many things happen without reason. To most people, that sounds terrifying. But to Camus, it was liberating. Because when you stop needing to justify existence with a big story, you finally stop rushing to arrive somewhere. You stop living for results and start living for experience. You begin to live. The freedom that comes from accepting the absurd isn't carelessness or apathy, it's responsibility. Because when no one else gives life meaning, it's up to you to create your own. Not by inventing lies to comfort yourself, but by living honestly, staying true to what you actually feel and experience. This is what Camus meant by rebellion. The rebellion of someone fully awake, who knows the void, but refuses to disappear into it. The beauty of this attitude lies in its calm boldness. There's no need for faith in higher worlds, no waiting for future redemption. Everything that matters is already here, in this moment. The touch of a hand, the smell of morning coffee, the sound of laughter that comes unexpectedly, the quiet pause between two sentences. Life doesn't need to prove its worth. It's already worth living if you're awake enough to notice it. And that awareness makes everything both fragile and precious. Camus understood that this kind of clarity requires courage. Seeing reality without illusions comes with a cost. You lose the comfort of false hopes. You stop chasing empty goals, but in return, you gain something much deeper: the right to be whole, to feel everything, the pain, the beauty, the fatigue, the joy. You stop needing a higher reason to validate your existence. You feel, and that is enough. At this point, the absurd stops being a monster to defeat. It becomes the landscape you live in. When you accept that meaning won't come from outside, you stop waiting for life to start. You start noticing it instead. And from noticing comes creation, the creation of a way of being that feels real, present, and truly yours. This is the paradox that makes Camus so powerful. When you stop chasing a grand purpose, you begin to find the small miracles hidden in ordinary life. When you stop demanding that life reward you, you begin to see what it has quietly offered all along, the chance to be here, fully, right now. And this brings us to those moments when you feel lost, confused, or uncertain. You might think it's the end, but maybe it's not an ending. Maybe it's the beginning. Camus helps us understand that feeling lost isn't failure. It's not weakness. It's actually a sign of awakening. In a world where everyone is numbed by speed, shallow distractions, and constant noise, the ones who feel the void are often the ones who see reality most clearly. Feeling lost means you've stopped pretending. You've noticed that something doesn't fit. You've started asking deeper questions. That awareness, even if it hurts, is proof that you're alive. Camus didn't write to comfort anyone. He wrote to wake people up. And waking up always hurts at first because it means seeing life without filters, without the illusions that society sells. It means letting go of easy answers and false hopes. But it also means discovering something amazing, that even without those guarantees, life can still be extraordinary. You are not broken just because you feel empty. You're simply touching a truth most people avoid, that everything is temporary, fragile, and uncertain. And seeing that clearly is not the end. It's the first step toward living freely. Because only when you realize there's no solid ground beneath you can you start walking with your own feet. That's when real freedom begins, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to say yes to life exactly as it is. Camus offers a philosophy for those who are done pretending, for those who are tired of fake meanings, empty goals, and social performances, for those who stopped in the middle of their path and thought, I don't know who I am anymore, for those who look around and no longer recognize themselves in the world, and instead of escaping, they choose to stay. They choose to look into the emptiness without turning away. And in that quiet confrontation, they find something real, a subtle kind of meaning that doesn't come from outside, but grows from being alive itself. The rebellion Camus speaks of isn't loud. It's a daily practice. It's staying present. It's noticing the details that haste erases. It's giving care to moments that seem small, but hold everything. It's building meaning not through promises or beliefs, but through how you live each second, not as someone waiting for revelation, but as someone who has decided that being here is already enough. And if you're still listening to this point, maybe you're also in the middle of your own awakening. Maybe you're rediscovering how beautiful the unexplainable can be. Maybe you're starting to feel the depth in things that can't be put into words. If this speaks to you, or even if it unsettles you, write in the comments, I am waking up. Not for attention, but so that you can hear your own voice among all the noise. You're not alone. And even if the world keeps trying to pull you away with distractions, there will always be a quiet place within you, a space of stillness where truth can still be felt. And it's in that stillness, in that small pause within the absurd, that something deeply human begins to bloom.